The Zaranthian warship materialized above Earth without warning. No distress signal. No declaration of intent. Just silence and the shadow of something vast enough to eclipse the moon. Captain Marcus Webb stood in the observation deck of Orbital Station Theta, watching defense grids light up like dying stars. His hand hovered over the emergency broadcast system. 20 years of military service told him this was first contact. His gut told him it was an execution. "Sir, they're hailing us." Communications Officer Torres didn't look up from her screen. "Audio only." It's requesting you by name." Marcus felt ice crystallize in his veins. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bridge wasn't what he expected. It carried the weight of centuries, smooth as dark water, feminine but somehow beyond gender. "Captain Marcus Webb, you have been selected. Our queen wishes to meet the human who disabled our scout vessel in the Andromeda approach. That had been 3 months ago. A skirmish nobody was supposed to know about, a vessel Earth's military couldn't identify, powered by technology that made fusion drives look like steam engines. He'd won through desperation and luck, exploiting a structural weakness in their hull plating. The alien ship had retreated. He'd filed the report. Command had buried it. "I'll come aboard," Marcus said. Alone, unarmed, wise. The connection severed. The transport beam felt like drowning in lightning. When Marcus materialized, he stood in a chamber that defied geometry. Walls curved into ceiling without seam or corner. Light emanated from surfaces that shifted between solid and liquid. And there, elevated on a dais of crystalline formation, sat the Queen. She was beautiful in the way a supernova was beautiful. Terrifying and impossible to look away from. Her skin held the deep blue-black of deep space, marked with patterns that moved like constellations. 4 arms, elegant and purposeful, eyes that contained galaxies. She wore armor that seemed grown rather than forged, organic metal that pulsed with her breathing. Her mouth didn't quite sync with the words. Translation technology, he realized. "I had to have it completely regrown. Do you understand how long that takes?" Marcus forced himself to meet her gaze. "I was defending my territory. Territory." She laughed, and the sound resonated in his chest cavity. "This entire sector is Zaranthian space. Has been for 6,000 years. Your species has been spacefaring for barely a century. Your children playing with fire. Children who burned your ship." There were 6 of them, towering figures in exoskeletons that hummed with contained violence. The Queen raised one hand. They froze. "I like you," she said, leaning forward. "Your species fascinates me. You're weak, short-lived, technologically primitive. By every metric, you should have been conquered or extinct. Yet here you are. Stubborn. Clever. Dangerous when cornered." She stood, descending the dais with movements too fluid for something that size. "I've been studying humans for decades. Your wars, your art, your capacity for both cruelty and sacrifice. I've consumed your literature, your films, your music. I find your concept of marriage particularly intriguing." Marcus's throat went dry. "Marriage?" "A permanent bond. Chosen. Not arranged for political gain or genetic optimization, but selected through emotion." She circled him slowly. He felt like prey being evaluated. "Your people marry for love. What a strange, reckless thing." "It's not always about love," Marcus said carefully. "Sometimes it's partnership, respect. Finding someone who makes you stronger." The Queen stopped in front of him. Up close, he could see the patterns on her skin were actually moving, microscopic organisms living in symbiosis with her. She smelled like ozone and something sweetly alien. "And have you found such a person, Captain Webb?" "No." The word came out before he could stop it. "My career didn't leave room for it." How tragic. Her tone carried genuine sympathy. "To be capable of such connection and deny yourself. I understand duty. I was bred to rule, genetically optimized, raised in isolation, trained from birth. I have never chosen anything for myself. My mates are selected by council, my children's genetics mapped before conception. I have conquered 17 star systems and never once decided my own path. Beneath the power and the threat, beneath the alien majesty, something desperately lonely, something that recognized itself in him. I wish..." He stopped himself. "Speak." Command threaded through her voice. "I wish you could choose. Someone like you deserves that freedom." The Queen went very still. Her eyes widened, pupils expanding into deeper darkness. "Someone like me?" powerful, intelligent, burdened with responsibility. Marcus felt himself stepping into an abyss. If you were free to choose, you'd be an incredible partner. Any man would be fortunate. Any man? She stepped closer. Even you? His heart hammered against his ribs. I'd be honored beyond measure. It transformed her face, softening the alien angles into something achingly vulnerable. I have conquered worlds with fleets. I have negotiated treaties that shaped galactic politics. I have executed traitors and elevated heroes. I have never in 300 years of life been courted. She reached out with one elegant hand, fingertips stopping just short of his face. You damage my ship. You stand in my throne room without fear. You see me as a person, not a threat. And now you say you wish I were your wife. I didn't mean, then make me yours. The words hung in the air like a detonation waiting to happen. Marcus stared at her. What? You heard me, Captain. You've presented a hypothetical. I'm accepting it. The Queen's smile widened, showing teeth designed for a carnivorous diet. Marry me. Take me as your wife. Give me the choice I've never had. This is insane. We're different species. I don't even know your name. Our governments will adapt. She finally touched his face, her skin surprisingly warm. I am Velithra, Queen of the Zarinthian Empire, Sovereign of the 17 Systems, Keeper of the Eternal Flame, and I am choosing you. The question is whether you're brave enough to choose me back. Marcus thought about his empty quarters on the station, the decades of service reports and commendations that substituted for a life, the carefully maintained distance he'd kept from everyone, telling himself it was professional, the loneliness he'd stopped noticing because it had become background radiation. He thought about the impossibility of what she offered, the diplomatic catastrophe, the biological incompatibility, the sheer absurdity of a human captain and an alien queen. Then he thought about the look in her eyes when she'd said she'd never chosen anything. Yes, he said. The throne room erupted. Guards moved forward. Velithra raised all 4 arms and the room fell silent. Stand down. This is my decision. Announce it to the council. Transmit it to the fleet. Queen Velithra has chosen her consort. One of the guards, distinguished by additional markings on his armor, stepped forward. My queen. This violates every protocol. The council must approve any mate. The genetic profiles must be analyzed. This human is unsuitable by every measure of our law. Then change the law. Velithra's voice could have cut steel. I have given 3 centuries to duty. I have sacrificed every personal desire for the Empire. I have earned this choice. Who among you will deny me? Silence. The guard bowed stiffly and retreated. Velithra turned back to Marcus, and her expression softened again. This won't be easy. My people will resist. Yours will panic. There will be political complications beyond measure. I faced worse odds, Marcus said, surprised by the steadiness in his voice.
No, Velithra said gently.
You haven't. But we'll face them together. She extended her hand and he took it, her fingers interlaced with his, the difference in size and structure somehow fitting perfectly. I should warn you, human courtship and Zarinthian bonding rituals are very different. Ours involve combat trials, genetic synchronization ceremonies, and a 3-month isolation period where we determine compatibility. And if we're not compatible, then we'll have tried. That's more choice than I've ever had. She pulled him closer, her other hands coming to rest on his shoulders. But I don't think compatibility will be our problem. I've been watching you for months, Captain Webb. I've studied your tactical decisions, your crew evaluations, the way you negotiate with your superiors. I've seen you make impossible choices with grace. You're exactly what I've been searching for without knowing I was searching. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, something he'd kept sealed since his first deployment. I don't know how to do this. I've never been good at personal connections. We'll learn together. Velithra touched her forehead to his, a gesture that felt deeply intimate despite their biological differences. I'm terrified, Marcus Webb! For the first time since I was a child, I'm genuinely afraid. Not of battle or politics or consequences. I'm afraid of wanting this too much. Me too, he admitted. They stood there, human and alien, captain and queen, 2 lonely people who'd accidentally found each other across the vast darkness of space. Around them, the ship hummed with barely contained chaos as guards scrambled to implement their queen's impossible decree. Communications arrays lit up, transmitting the news that would reshape diplomatic relations across multiple star systems. But in that moment, none of it mattered. There was just Velithra's hand in his, her eyes meeting his, with an honesty that transcended species, and the terrifying, exhilarating possibility of something neither of them had ever expected to find. The Queen of the Zarinthian Empire had conquered worlds. Captain Marcus Webb had defended his home against impossible odds. Now they were about to attempt something far more dangerous than warfare, building a life together. So, Marcus said, what happens now? Velithra's smile turned mischievous. Now we face the council. They're going to be furious. It should be entertaining. She squeezed his hand. Stay close to me. Some of them might attempt physical challenges to test your worthiness. Standard protocol for evaluating potential mates? You mean they're going to try to kill me? Only a little. I won't let them succeed, probably. She was already pulling him toward a massive doorway that had materialized in the wall. Come, my chosen. Let's introduce you to galactic politics at its finest. Marcus followed, hand still clasped in hers, walking toward the most insane decision of his life with his eyes wide open. Behind them, her guards fell into formation, their postures radiating disapproval and disbelief. Ahead, he could hear the rising din of voices, the council already in emergency session. Velithra? He said quietly. Yes. The Queen of the Zarinthian Empire, sovereign of 17 systems, looked back at him with an expression of such pure joy that it transformed her alien features into something universally recognizable. Hope. Thank you for seeing me, she said. Not the crown or the power or the threat. Just me. They walked forward together into the storm, two people against the universe, bound by nothing but choice and the fragile, fierce determination to make that choice mean something. The council chamber was a coliseum carved from a single asteroid, transplanted into the heart of the warship. Hundreds of Zarinthian officials occupied tiered seating, their bodies various shades of blue and purple, their armor marking rank and house affiliation. The noise of their argument was deafening, a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and translated speech that washed over Marcus like a physical wave. Velithra didn't pause. She strode into the center of the chamber, pulling Marcus with her, and the voices cut off as if severed, every eye fixed on them. Marcus felt his military training engage, spine straightening, face carefully neutral. He'd faced courts-martial before. This was just another tribunal. Except the judges were aliens, and the stakes were literally galactic. Council, Velithra announced, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space. I present Captain Marcus Webb of the human species, planet Earth, solar system. I have chosen him as my consort and mate. The bonding will proceed according to my authority as sovereign. My queen, this is unprecedented. No ruling monarch has ever selected a mate from outside our species. The genetic implications alone are irrelevant, Velithra cut him off. I have no intention of producing heirs with Captain Webb. My genetic material is already stored and allocated according to succession protocols. This union is personal, not political. A female counselor with elaborate horns spoke up. Then, what is the purpose? Why risk diplomatic complications with the human government? Why violate our traditions? Velithra was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried a weight Marcus hadn't heard before. Because I choose to. Because in 300 years of service I have never made a single decision for myself. Because this human saw me as a person worthy of choice, not a breeding vessel or political asset. Because I am tired of being alone. The honesty of it rippled through the chamber. Marcus saw something shift in the counselor's expressions, a recognition of the cost of the crown they'd placed on her. The human must prove himself, another counselor declared. If he is to stand beside our queen, he must demonstrate worthiness through the trials. Agreed, Velithra said immediately. Marcus shot her a look. She squeezed his hand. Standard protocol. Retrials, combat, wisdom, and sacrifice. Pass them, and the council cannot object. It's written in the founding laws. I didn't agree to trials, Marcus pointed out quietly. You agreed to marry me. This is part of it. She turned to him fully. I won't force you. You can still walk away, return to your station, resume your life. I'll ensure safe passage and erase this incident from official records. Marcus looked up at the hundreds of Zarinthian faces watching them. He thought about what she was risking for him, the vulnerability she'd shown. He thought about the loneliness in her voice when she'd said she'd never chosen anything. What's the first trial? Velithra's expression blazed with pride and affection. She faced the council. The human accepts. Prepare the combat arena. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in a circular pit 50 meters across, wearing borrowed armor that almost fit. Across from him, A Zaranthian warrior named Krell flexed 4 arms tipped with bone blades. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his exoskeleton augmented with combat enhancements that whined with power. "This is a friendly trial," Velithra explained from the edge of the arena. She'd wanted to be closer, but protocol demanded she observe from the counselor's platform. First blood wins. "Krell will not attempt to kill you." "Probably." "Comforting," Marcus muttered. "You defeated a scout ship," Velithra reminded him. "You can handle 1 warrior." Krell moved like lightning. Marcus barely dodged the first strike, the bone blade missing his throat by centimeters. He rolled, came up, and realized he'd made a critical error. This wasn't a space battle where he could outthink technology. This was hand-to-hand against an opponent with every physical advantage. He needed to be smarter. Krell charged again. Marcus didn't dodge. He stepped inside the attack, too close for the blade to connect properly, and drove his elbow into the joint of Krell's lower right arm. The warrior's biology was different, but joints were joints. There was a crack, and Krell roared, stumbling back. "You study anatomy?" Krell sounded impressed despite the pain. "I study everything," Marcus said, circling. "Occupational hazard." They exchanged blows for 3 more minutes. Marcus took hits that would have broken ribs if not for the armor. He gave back attacks that exploited every structural weakness he could identify. Krell was stronger, faster, better equipped. But Marcus had spent 20 years learning to win fights he shouldn't survive. Finally, he saw his opening. Krell overextended on a downward strike. Marcus pivoted, grabbed the extended arm, and used Krell's momentum to flip him. 300 kilos of Zaranthian warrior hit the ground hard. Marcus's borrowed blade found the gap in Krell's armor at the neck, stopped just as the point drew a single drop of blue-black blood. "First blood," Marcus said, breathing hard. "I win." Krell laughed a sound like grinding stones and clapped Marcus on the shoulder hard enough to make his teeth rattle. "You fight dirty. I respect that." "Welcome to the family, little human." Velithra's expression was incandescent as Marcus climbed out of the pit. She met him halfway, all 4 hands touching his face, his shoulders, checking for injuries. That was magnificent. Stupid, but magnificent. "You could have been killed." "You said he probably wouldn't kill me." "Probably isn't a guarantee." She pulled him close, and he felt her heart's beating rapid triplets against his chest. "The next trial is wisdom. You'll face the Keeper of Records. She'll ask you questions designed to expose the limitations of human understanding. Answer truthfully, even if the truth makes you look ignorant. What happens if I fail?" "Then we find another way. I'm not giving you up, Marcus Webb. I've made my choice." She brushed his hair back from his forehead, a surprisingly tender gesture. "But I'd like the Council's blessing. It will make the politics easier." The Keeper of Records was ancient, her carapace weathered and marked with the scars of centuries. She sat in a chamber filled with data crystals, each one containing the complete knowledge of a subject. Her eyes, clouded with age, fixed on Marcus with disturbing intensity. "Human," she said, "I will ask you 3 questions. Answer with wisdom, not cleverness. First question. Your species has existed for perhaps 200,000 years. My species has existed for 5 million. We have achieved technologies you cannot comprehend, conquered challenges you have not yet imagined. Why should I believe you have anything valuable to teach my queen?" Marcus took a breath. "Because wisdom isn't about age or technology, it's about perspective. Your queen has spent 300 years being perfect. I've spent 43 years learning from my mistakes. I can't teach her about your technologies or your culture, but I can show her that imperfection isn't weakness. That choosing badly is better than never choosing. That sometimes the most important thing isn't getting it right, but trying anyway." The Keeper's expression didn't change. Second question. If you bond with our queen, you will outlive your species. Human lifespans are brief. Even with our medical intervention, you might live 2 centuries. Velithra will live another 700 years minimum. How do you reconcile binding her to grief? This question hurt. Marcus felt it like a blade between his ribs. "I don't. There is no reconciliation. If she chooses me, she's choosing future pain. That's the nature of loving something temporary." He met the Keeper's gaze. "But the alternative is 700 years of safety and loneliness. I can't tell her which is better. I can only offer what I have for however long I have it, and trust her to decide if it's worth the cost." The Keeper clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. "Third question. What do you want from my queen?" "Everything," Marcus said immediately. "Her attention, her honesty, her arguments when I'm wrong, and her support when I'm right, her presence beside me when things are difficult, and her laughter when they're good." I want to know what she thinks about before sleeping and what she dreams about after. I want to learn her language and teach her mine. I want to build something with her that neither of us could build alone." Silence fell. The keeper stared at him for a full minute. Then she rose, crossed the chamber, and placed one aged hand on his shoulder. "You are wise enough to know your ignorance and brave enough to want, anyway. You will do." She turned to where Velithra had been listening from the doorway. "My queen, I approve this match. He sees you clearly." Velithra's expression crumpled with relief. She crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled Marcus into an embrace that lifted him off his feet. 2 trials down, 1 more. "What's the sacrifice trial?" Marcus asked when she set him down. Velithra's joy dimmed. "That's the hard one. Come, the council is waiting." The final trial took place in a chamber Marcus couldn't quite perceive correctly. The geometry bent, twisted, showed him angles that shouldn't exist. In the center stood a device that looked organic and mechanical simultaneously, pulsing with light. The silver-marked counselor from before spoke. "The trial of sacrifice is simple. This device will present you with a choice. Something you value deeply against something the queen values deeply. You must choose which to preserve and which to destroy. Choose poorly, and the bond is denied." Marcus felt cold spread through his gut. "Define poorly. That's for you to determine." The counselor stepped back, approached the device. Marcus walked forward. Velithra started to follow, but guards blocked her path. She snarled at them, all pretense of calm sovereignty abandoned, but didn't fight. Protocol demanded the trial be faced alone. The device activated as Marcus reached it. Holographic projections materialized on either side. On the left, Earth, his home. Continents he recognized, oceans, the swirl of clouds. On the right, the Zarinthian homeworld. Purple vegetation, crystalline cities, moons that sang. A voice filled the chamber, toneless and artificial. "Choose. 1 planet survives. The other is destroyed. Choose now." Marcus stared at the impossible decision. 7 billion humans? Trillions of Zarinthians, his species. Species. No answer that wasn't monstrous. "No," he said. The device pulsed. "Choose it." "I refuse. If the price of bonding with Velithra is genocide, then the bond isn't worth having. I won't choose." He turned to face the council. "If this is your idea of wisdom, you're monsters. If this is a test, I'm failing it deliberately. There is no scenario where I sacrifice billions for personal happiness." Velithra was pushing against the guards now, desperation in her voice. "Marcus, wait, think about—" "I am thinking. I am thinking that if your traditions demand this kind of choice, they're wrong. I'm thinking that no relationship built on that foundation could ever be good." He looked at her directly. "I choose you, Velithra? I'll choose you every day. But not like this. Not at this cost." The device went dark. The chamber fell silent. Then the silver-marked counselor started laughing, a sound like clicking crystal. "He passes. Of course he passes." Marcus spun. "What?" "It's about refusing it." The counselor descended from his platform. "Too many suitors have stood where you stand and chosen the Zarinthian homeworld thinking it would please the queen. They failed to understand that any mate worthy of her would value all life, not just the lives she rules. You chose correctly by choosing not to play." Velithra broke free from the guards and threw herself at Marcus. He caught her, staggering under her weight and momentum. Her forearms wrapped around him, her face pressed into his shoulder, and he felt wetness that might have been tears. "You magnificent idiot," she breathed. "You could have just said you refused sooner. I was terrified they'd actually—" She pulled back, searching his face. "You really wouldn't have chosen? Not in a billion years. Even if it meant losing me? Especially then? What kind of man would I be if I let billions die for my own happiness? What kind of life could we build on that?" Velithra kissed him. It was deeply strange, her mouth not quite the right shape, her biology alien enough that it felt like kissing another species because it was. But it was also perfect, carrying 300 years of loneliness and want and desperate hope. He kissed her back, hands finding purchase on her shoulders, and the chamber erupted in approving clicks and whistles. When they finally broke apart, the council was on its feet. The silver-marked counselor raised all 4 arms. "The trials are complete. The human Marcus Webb has proven himself worthy through combat, wisdom, and sacrifice. By the ancient laws, the council has no objection to this union. Queen Velithra, you may proceed with the bonding ceremony." Velithra turned to the council, still holding Marcus close. "Thank you, counselors." Your wisdom honors our traditions. Her tone turned pointed. I'm sure you'll extend the same respect to the human delegation that will arrive shortly to negotiate our formal alliance. Human delegation? The counselor looked alarmed. Of course. You didn't think I'd bond with a human and not establish diplomatic relations with his government? We have a war fleet parked above his planet. That's going to require some delicate conversations. Velithra smiled sweetly. I trust you'll all attend the negotiations. It should be very educational. Marcus bit back a laugh. He'd just passed 3 deadly trials, and now she was casually rearranging galactic politics. You planned this. I'm 300 years old, and I've been running an empire since before your grandparents were born. Of course I planned this. She turned back to him, her expression softening. But the feelings were real. The choice was real, the rest is just logistics. Just logistics, Marcus repeated. Right. The logistics of joining 2 species who've never had contact. We'll figure it out together. Velithra took his hand again, that gesture that had become familiar in the span of a few hours. It won't be easy. There will be cultural misunderstandings, biological incompatibilities, political opposition from both sides. Half your people will call you a traitor for fraternizing with an alien. Half my people will call me weak for choosing outside our species. So why do it? Because for the first time in 300 years I woke up this morning and felt excited about tomorrow. Because you looked at me and saw a person, not a weapon or a political asset. Because when I asked you to make me yours, you said yes without hesitation. She lifted his hand to her face, the gesture achingly tender. Because I've conquered 17 star systems and none of it meant anything until someone saw me. Marcus thought about his empty quarters on Theta Station. The commendations gathering dust, the careful distance he'd maintained from connection because duty was safer than vulnerability. He thought about what he was giving up. His career, his species, possibly his life if the political fallout went badly. Then he looked at Velithra and knew he'd make the same choice infinite times. When does the bonding ceremony happen? Traditionally 3 months from now, after the isolation period where we determine compatibility. Velithra's expression turned mischievous. But I'm the queen. I can accelerate the timeline if I want. We could bond tonight. That seems fast. I've waited 300 years. That's slow enough. She pulled him toward the chamber exit. Come, we have to inform your government that their military captain is now engaged to an alien queen. That conversation should be spectacular. The council parted before them. As they walked through, Krell fell into step beside them, apparently appointed as their guard. The human fights well, he commented. I look forward to training with him. Of course, you're bonding with the queen. That makes you a target for every rival house and political faction. You'll need combat training, diplomatic schooling, and enhancement procedures to extend your lifespan. Krell sounded entirely too cheerful about this. It will be very painful. You'll hate most of it. You're really selling this, Marcus said. He's not wrong. Being my consort is dangerous. You'll face assassination attempts, political manipulation, and constant scrutiny. Your life will never be simple again. As opposed to now, when I'm totally not standing in an alien warship about to start an interspecies incident. Fair point. They reached a transport chamber. Velithra pulled him close one more time before they beamed down to negotiate with Earth's governments. Last chance, Marcus Webb. You can still walk away. Return to your simple military life. Find a nice human woman. Have normal problems. Marcus cupped her alien face in his hands, traced the constellation patterns on her skin. I said I wished you were my wife. You said make you mine. I'm not walking away from that. Even though it's insane? Especially because it's insane? He kissed her forehead, the gesture feeling more natural each time. Let's go terrify some politicians. They materialized in the conference room of Orbital Station Theta 30 seconds later. Marcus's commanding officer, Admiral Chen, was mid-sentence when they appeared. She froze, staring at Velithra's towering form. Admiral, Marcus said calmly, I'd like to introduce Queen Velithra of the Zarinthian Empire. We're engaged. She's here to negotiate a formal alliance between our species. Also, I'm resigning my commission effective immediately. Admiral Chen sat down slowly. Captain Webb, what the hell have you done? Velithra smiled, showing all her teeth. He made me his, Admiral Chen, and in doing so prevented a war. You're welcome. She extended a hand in a gesture she'd clearly studied from human customs. Shall we discuss how our peoples can move forward together? The Admiral looked at Marcus. He saw the question in her eyes. Have you lost your mind? Probably, he thought. But for the first time in 43 years, he felt alive. He took Valithra's other hand and squeezed. She squeezed back, her alien fingers interlacing perfectly with his human ones. "I know this seems impossible," Marcus said to the Admiral. And it is. But so is first contact. So is faster-than-light travel. So is standing on a station in orbit and breathing vacuum. Humanity has always done impossible things. This is just one more. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she stood, straightened her uniform, and extended her hand to Valithra. "Welcome to the solar system, Your Majesty. Let's talk about how to keep our peoples from killing each other." Valithra's smile transformed into something genuine and grateful. "I would like that very much, Admiral." They talked for 6 hours, negotiating safe zones, establishing communication protocols, arranging for cultural exchanges. Valithra was brilliant, balancing strength with diplomacy, offering concessions that cost her nothing but made Earth's representatives feel heard. Marcus watched her work and fell a little more in love with each precisely chosen word. When the initial framework was established, Admiral Chen dismissed the other human representatives and fixed Marcus with a hard stare. "Explain." "I damaged her ship. She requested a meeting. We talked. She asked me to marry her. I said yes." Marcus shrugged. "That's the short version. The short version is insane. I don't want to know what the long version looks like." Chen rubbed her temples. "Do you understand what you started? The religious implications alone." "I know. But Admiral, look at the alternative. We had a Zerinthian warship in orbit with no clear intent. Now we have the beginning of an alliance. We have access to technologies centuries beyond ours. We have a diplomatic relationship that could reshape humanity's place in the galaxy." He leaned forward. "And yes, I'm marrying an alien queen. But that's not political strategy. That's just me choosing to be happy." Chen was quiet. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. "I've known you for 15 years, Webb. You've always been alone. Married to duty. If this alien queen makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. Even if she terrifies the hell out of me." "She terrifies me too," Marcus admitted, but in a good way. Valithra returned from speaking with her own advisors. She touched Marcus's shoulder, the casual affection still new and startling. "We should return to my ship. The bonding ceremony preparations will take several hours, and you'll need to be educated on Zerinthian customs." "How long do I have?" 6 hours until the ceremony. Use them wisely." She turned to Admiral Chen. "Thank you for your understanding, Admiral. I know the situation is unprecedented. I promise to treat your captain with the respect and care he deserves." "See that you do," Chen said quietly. "He's one of our best. We're trusting you with something precious." Valithra's expression went soft. "I know. I won't fail him." Valithra led Marcus to chambers that had been prepared for him, rooms that attempted to blend human and Zerinthian aesthetics. It was disorienting and beautiful and completely alien. "This is where you'll stay during the compatibility period," Valithra explained. "We'll spend time together, learn each other's rhythms, determine if we can truly build a life together. It's traditional to remain separate until the bonding," but she hesitated and Marcus saw vulnerability again.
"I don't want to be apart from you."
"Is that foolish?" "No." He pulled her close, his arms not quite reaching around her. "I don't want to be apart either. We can honor tradition without being prisoners to it." She rested her forehead against his. "You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's what I want." "That's enough." He looked up at her. "Tell me about the bonding ceremony. What should I expect? Pain, probably?" "Our biology is very different. The ritual involves genetic markers, neural synchronization, pheromone exchange. Your body will reject most of it. We'll have to modify the ceremony significantly." She looked worried. "I won't force anything that will harm you. If at any point you want to stop, I won't." "Marcus, Valithra, I've made my choice. I'm not going to back out because it's uncomfortable." He smiled. "Besides, Krell said the training would be painful. Might as well start now. You're either the bravest human alive or the most foolish. Both, probably." The next 6 hours passed in a blur. Valithra taught him basic Zerinthian phrases. He taught her human gestures and customs. They ate together, her food crystalline and strange, his brought up from Earth stores. They talked about everything and nothing, filling in the gaps of 2 lifetimes lived in isolation. When the time came, Valithra led him to the bonding chamber. It was intimate, small, attended only by a priestess who looked ancient beyond measure. The ceremony itself was beautiful and bizarre, involving light and sound and the exchange of biological markers that made Marcus's skin burn. But Velithra held his hand through all of it, her presence steady and certain. When it was done, they were bonded. Not married in the human sense, not mated in the Zaranthian sense, but something new, something that had never existed before. "How do you feel?" Velithra asked quietly. Marcus took inventory. His skin still tingled, his heart beat strange rhythms. He could feel Velithra's emotions at the edges of his consciousness, a side effect of the neural synchronization. It was overwhelming and intimate and terrifying. "Complete," he said finally. "For the first time in my life, I feel complete." Velithra pulled him close, all four arms creating a cage of safety around him. "I chose wisely then." We both did. They stood there as the ship hummed around them. Two impossible people who'd found each other across the void. Outside, two species began the delicate work of learning to coexist. Inside this chamber, a human captain and an alien queen held each other and marveled at their own audacity. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Velithra smiled against his hair. "Now we build a life. Together. Day by day. Choice by choice. Sounds perfect." "It won't be. It'll be complicated and messy and sometimes painful."
I know. Marcus pulled back just enough to meet her eyes.
"But it'll be ours. That's all I need." The queen of the Zarinthian Empire, who had conquered 17 star systems and never chosen anything for herself, kissed her human husband and felt, for the first time in 300 years, entirely free. In the end, that was the real triumph. Not the political alliance or the prevented war or the joining of two species. Just two lonely people who'd been brave enough to choose each other and wise enough to know that choice was worth fighting for.